Welcome back, America. It's Hugh Hewitt. My buddy Andrazik, John Andrazik, Fight for Fighting, called me up about 6 weeks ago and said, "You got to come see a movie." And I said, "Yeah, I don't want to go downtown D.C." 6 weeks ago, John, what's it about? He said, "It's about the collapse of Afghanistan." Oh, okay. And you'll meet Tim Kennedy. And I, honest to God, said, and no offense to my next guest, Tim Kennedy, who's Tim Kennedy? Because I don't follow mixed martial arts or the UFC. And he said, "Well, what are you, a moron? Everybody knows who Tim Kennedy is." But I didn't. And so I got to the movie, I saw it, met Tim Kennedy, and then I read his book, Scars and Stripes, and I am very glad to talk to him now. He is a Green Beret, a sniper, and a former MMA fighter. He was on History Channel's Hunting Hitler and Discovery's Hard to Kill. There's a lot about Tim Kennedy, and it's all in this book. Tim, welcome to the Hugh Hewitt Show.
Man, it's a pleasure. Thanks for having me.
You know, I met you briefly at the film, and I spent a lot of time talking to Nick, but no time talking with you. And then I read your book and I said, wow, what a backstory. But you know, there are a lot of people like me who are 66 and they've never watched MMA or UFC. Are you finding that the country is divided into those who have a complete clue and those who have none about MMA and UFC?
Yeah, I actually get along way easier and better with those that have no idea who I am because the fight fans, they're a different breed. They're hilarious, and I love fighting for them. 20 years as a professional athlete, but we honestly don't have that much in common. So every time it's like, man, who are you? I'm like, oh, we're gonna be friends. We have a better chance already.
Yeah. Well, I love your dad, by the way. Your dad raises kids the way I think kids should be raised, which is come home at the end of the day. And I just love it. I want to get to UFC and MMA, but first I want to talk about the most important thing about Scars and Stripes. It's about your time as a Green Beret. It's about your time going back to rescue people in Afghanistan. That's what the new movie you and Nick made. Do you have any idea when it's going to drop, Tim Kennedy?
I mean, so we. It's funny you ask. We just decided in the past 48 hours that we are going to rush our documentary about the fall of Afghanistan. So myself and three other men went into Afghanistan, and we moved 12,000 people in a matter of 10 days, 17,000 people since the total collapse of the country. But in 10 days, we moved 12,000 Americans, green card, P1, SIV, essentially Americans' allies that have been over there or that were going to be killed by the Taliban. We went over to get out. And the complete catastrophic strategic failure that was the leaving of Afghanistan in that time is what this documentary is about. It's what happened in real time on the ground. And I think we're going to rush it. Next month is the 1-year anniversary. And we're going to try to – we're not even going to do the film circuits. We're just going to go straight to delivery because this movie people need to see.
Well, I called up as soon as I saw the rough cut, and it is a rough cut.
Yes, sir.
I called up Mike Reed, who runs SalemNow.com. I said, try and get the distribution rights to this movie because these are heroes, and we need to tell their story. And Scars and Stripes comes out at the same time, and it's your story, but it's also the story of these men who went with you. It's the story of Sea Spray, who's now in Ukraine doing squirrely stuff, and Sea Spray must be an interesting character. Do you stay in touch with him?
No, I just got back from Ukraine on Wednesday, and in the past 3 days, Sea Spray just rescued another American, another journalist that was wounded while trying to report the war atrocities that are happening over there. And Sea Spray went into enemy lines and rescued this guy. Absolutely heroic. When somebody finally makes a movie about this man, it is going to be something unbelievable. Nobody's going to believe what this man did.
Almost every special forces person who is at anywhere other than the left edge of the bell curve is worth an interview and a book. But yours is particularly notable because of your roundabout way. And there's a low point outside of Morro Bay. I know Morro Bay very well, Tim. I represented the largest landowner in Morro Bay who had Morro Bay kangaroo rats all over. So I would look at that rock all the time. So when you're talking about walking naked into the bay with nothing on your mind except perhaps not coming back, I'd love to meet the lady. I hope the lady who is standing on the shore gets wind of this book because it's actually one of those inflection points where an angel shows up and saves a life.
I mean, so I don't know how to find her. She might, because, Morro Bay is a retirement type town and a tourist town. But this was pre-cell phone, right? So I took my pager and I dropped it on my clothes. And I don't know if this was true divine intervention or, if that was literally an angel or if that was just some amazing woman. But she would have had to have hopped into a car. This is in darkness during, there's fog and darkness early morning. And she would have had to driven into town to this Coast Guard station to get help. So I don't know who she is, but man, she definitely saved my life.
She did, and there's got to be a salty old senior chief in the Coast Guard somewhere who's going to read this. I also want to ask you, maybe we'll wait until after the break, about Sergeant First Class Will Summers. And I want to talk to you a lot about UFC as well and MMA. We're going to take a break here and come back. Let me tell everyone, Scars and Stripes is an eye-opening book that you should read only to understand what the collapse of Afghanistan was like on the ground from someone who does not have to worry about the next up in the line of command. Tim does and can and delivers the truth about those awful dozen days at the end of the 20-year war, and the good, the bad, and the ugly, indeed the grace-filled and the courageous. Scars and Stripes tells it all, as it does about the UFC and MMA. More of that coming back on the other side. Stay tuned, America. I'm Hugh Hewitt.
What's happening?
Welcome back, America. That's John Androsik again. Blood on My Hands, the song he was moved to write after watching the collapse of Afghanistan. Tim Kennedy wouldn't watch. He got on a plane, thanks to our friends in the United Arab Emirates. And by the way, their ambassador is a friend of mine, Tim. They really made stuff happen. I just love the fact that your book calls out the UAE and all that they did. I've learned from veterans of Afghanistan. Their special forces were alongside our special forces in Afghanistan for most of those 20 years. Did you ever fight alongside a UAE special forces guy?
Yes, sir. In my second trip to Afghanistan, I was working directly for the coalition, and in the book, I mostly describe a few specific missions with the Czech Special Operations.
Right.
But during that time, when I was working for the coalition, that did include the UAE. So I did work directly with them, and they were extraordinary. They also had, because all their food was halal, they had really, really great food. So I went over there often.
All right. Now, I also want you to tell us about Nick before I get into UFC and MMA. Tell us about Nick, because I did talk to Nick. He's an amazing guy. And by the way, I don't know how you got him to get on that plane. His wife probably was going to kill him. I can kind of see leaning into this, given you're ready for anything, Tim. But Nick, I just can't imagine he got on that plane.
Man, she said something really profound, and it's something that I think a lot of veterans really wanted to do and were voicing, but didn't know how an outlet to do it. You know, she looked at Nick, and Nick was, and when Nick asked, "I want to go to Afghanistan," she says, "So does everybody else, but you have the opportunity to do something, and you will regret it for the rest of your life if you don't." Like, what wisdom is that of a wife and a powerful, confident woman to empower her husband like that? Because she knew that there were millions of veterans all over the country that were dying inside, watching all the places that they lost brothers and they lost limbs and that we fought for go back to the Taliban. And in her wisdom, she says, "So does everybody else. You have the opportunity to go." And
that is remarkable. He's remarkable. Now, I want to ask you about one other individual in the book, because I always do believe in due process. And at the end of the movie, you know, I want to know, who is this colonel in the 82nd Airborne who made that mistake? By the way, my wife, who does not dive deep into military matters the way I do, she understands the military life better than I do, because she pitches in whenever someone's deployed. But I got to ask you, does the colonel have a different version of events, do you think? And you know who I'm talking about, and everyone will.
Yes, sir.
So what do you think?
Of course, there's always two sides to a story. And I know that as soon as I think there was immediate regret, he didn't, of course, have all the information, and the limited information that he had, he was trying to do the best. And it is really easy on Monday morning to look at a game on Sunday and call about, you know, not making the best play. But we're talking about the worst 12 days of a 20-year war and the worst 12 days of absolute chaos and mayhem. And I'm not defending him. You know, what he did was terrible. He got Americans and our allies killed, no doubt, by forcing those buses to go back outside of the HKIA gates. But, you know, there is an investigation. There is something going on. But it is also hell. Like, war is literally hell. And what was happening there on the ground was indescribable. And I was trying to do the best that I could, and so was everybody else. And
all I would say to people when they read this is, keep in mind, the colonel that we're talking about, when you get to that part or you watch the movie, he may have saved 3,000 lives later that day. That's all I want people to know. Now, Tim Kennedy, would you tell me a little bit, do you want a select committee on the collapse in Afghanistan? Do you want Congress to dig deep into what happened? Because We still don't have answers. I mean, we don't have any answers at all.
I would say let's move on. If we hadn't done this before, this is not the first time that we have tried to leave a place ineffectively, and it cost thousands of lives. And so we need to learn from this. We need to not do this again. If whether you believe in nation building, whatever your foreign policy is, I think everybody can agree that what we did here was terrible. So we need to document what were the decisions in an AAR, sustains and improves. What are the things that we did right, and what are the things that we did wrong? The things that we did wrong, we never need to do again. We do not need to give up strategic ground like Bagram and Kandahar when we're in the middle of removing people out of a country. We don't want to give up the tactical and strategic focal points so that the Taliban can take control, the strategic and tactical control of the country. We should have known that. And the fact that we didn't,
number one lesson from your book, if we're going to leave, execute the withdrawal of your allies first, then your soldiers second. Don't leave them. And they're dying every day, and I cover that. Now, Tim, let's do some fun stuff. If you're new to UFC and MMA, and I am, and I was until I read Scars and Stripes, the description of the San Luis Obispo training you went through and of the circuit you rose through to become a champion is quite a revelation. I don't know how anyone emerges not paralyzed, actually.
Well, we definitely come out dumb on the other end. So, and a little bit uglier if you see my face.
You didn't look ugly to me, but I mean, when you first walk into those gyms, are you now acting towards would-be MMA, UFC fighters the way they acted towards you when you showed up at the, whatever they call it, the pit, whatever in San Luis Obispo?
No, it's a polished, proper sport now. You know, the athletes make millions of dollars fighting. When I was fighting for $1,000 for a bare knuckle fight in Tijuana, it's a way different thing than the Conor McGregor and the Chuck Liddells and the Ronda Rouseys. Now we have legitimate belts with legitimate organizations and drug testing and commissions. So it's a way different thing now than it was when I started fighting.
So it's so interesting to me that you say that, because it seemed to me wholly unregulated when you did it. And wholly unregulated boxing went the way of all human things when they realized people could get killed. And now you're telling me UFC is regulated to a level of excellence that life-threatening injury doesn't happen?
No, never. They are the athletes that come from UFC. You see high-level collegiate wrestlers, judo, world champion jiu-jitsu fighters. All of these people that are coming to mixed martial arts. These are, they have performance training centers. You have USADA, which is the United States Anti-Doping Administration. So all the athletes are tested. Everybody is a true professional athlete, and they're all making millions of dollars. They're not making enough, nowhere near enough. The promotions still underpay the athletes, but that's a different problem.
So it has been from the beginning of time with entertainment, right? Only recently did college football players begin to get even a taste of the value they are bringing to their university. So, Tim Kennedy, you're retired from fighting, correct?
Yes, sir.
And how long ago did you do that?
3 years ago.
Why did you make that decision?
I mean, kind of what we're just talking about. I have a lot of great businesses. I have 8 companies that are very successful, and I didn't want to get punched in the face to make someone else more money. And when I wanted to be world champion, all I could focus on was being world champion. The money was never part of it. I just wanted to fight and be recognized as the best fighter on the planet. As I got a little wiser, not necessarily smarter, but wiser, doing brain damage to make someone else money didn't seem like the best route for me to make a living.
All right, so let me go back to the fact that you were going to be a cop like your dad, and you get rocks thrown at you that could have killed your friends, and you make an incident of it, and you're charged, but you're not prosecuted because it was clear you were in the right when you did so. Are you bitter about that, or do you recognize now that as the door opening that you didn't realize was opening?
Yeah, what do you regret in life? Do I regret watching a guy throw this this large boulder, this large rock at a little child next to me? Could I have not done something? I don't have it in me to not do something. So there's no way that I could watch my pastor's son almost get killed by a rock and then be like, oh, I'm okay with just sitting here and telling those guys to go away. For evil to conquer, it takes good men to do nothing. And I think we've been living in an era where people have been doing nothing for far too long, and it's time for good men to stand up and do something. So I don't regret what I did. I would, at the time it felt catastrophic and like the end of my world, but I would still go back and I would tell that younger version, that 21-year-old version of myself, shoot faster and more accurately.
All right. So the moral of the story is every young person, you're going to hit an inflection point when you bottom out and you are disappointed in the most extreme by life, whether it's with relationships or relationships plural, or with job plans blown to hell, or with all sorts of things, and you have a choice to make. The senior chief shows up. That's the best story in the book, Tim. I mean, I like the story of saving thousands of people because it's America at its best. But in terms of readers of Scars and Stripes, that's going to be the takeaway if they're young. You don't walk into the water.
No, and if you do, you keep swimming. I could have gone down to the drink. I could just been enveloped in the cold, dark arms that are the ocean. But I wanted to live, and I wanted another day. Now, when I stepped into the water, I don't know what I want when I stepped into the water. But there was no. There was just emptiness there. So like you're 100% right. Don't go into the water. And if you do, and there are people that are there that are treading water right now, it's never too late to reach out for a helping hand to pull you up out of the water, figuratively, literally, and metaphorically.
That's the takeaway. And this, by the way, is not a PG-13 book. It's an R-rated book. And so you don't want to give it maybe to your 8-year-old. But if you want to give it to your 14-year-old, I think that's fine. Last question, Tim Kennedy. I just talked about this with Jason Church, who runs Veterans on Duty. The Army isn't making its recruiting numbers. The Navy is going to be down to that. Why is that? I mean, you were ready to go. You went the whole. Your Green Beret training. If anyone wants to be a Green Beret, read this because it's the real deal. It's not glorified. What is the Army's problem?
It's twofold. It's a culture problem. We have the lowest percentage of American youth that are eligible for service in history. They're fat, they are weak, they are broken, they're using drugs, and all of those things make them ineligible for service. All of those things take waivers, and that is a national disaster. Like that is a strategic breaking point for us to not have a healthy youthful population that are even eligible for service. That's one problem. The second is the military has we do try to be ahead of cultural issues. We're working on breaking segregation. We're addressing gays in the military. But when the full focus goes away from being the most lethal fighting force on the planet, I don't want to be part of it. I want to be part of the greatest, most violent group on the planet Earth. That if the nation asks us to go fight our wars, the whole entire world is like, oh my God.
General Mattis used to say, "No better friend, no worse enemy," and
right.
I love that.
That's right.
Let's close with this. The guy I would like to read a book by, who is described in your book, is Sergeant First Class Will Summers on page 108. Would you tell people about him?
Will Summers was one of the first men to go into Afghanistan. The Horsemen, famous story of 12 strong, written about them. There's a monument to them in New York. They literally rode to fight against terrorists on horseback. This Will Summers was one of my trainers. He was a great Christian. He's a brother that was a mentor to all of us young men aspiring to be Green Berets. He was vicious. He was ruthless. He was fearless. There's no fat on his face and his body. It was just sinew and hate coming out of his eyes. And he built a generation of warriors that went on to fight in this 20-year war. And he was one of many that did the best that he could. I love that man.
Well, the 18 X-rays, the people who don't know what that means, go read Scars and Stripes. But Tim Kennedy, I enjoyed this book immensely. I hope you'll come back when the movie is available because I want people to go to see it. I want Nick to come on as well. They've got to see what happened. It's the 1-year anniversary. And you're telling me it's going to be up and available within a month, you think?
Yes, sir. We're doing everything we can, working around the clock to get this movie finished in the final product.
Yeah, don't make the perfect the enemy of the good. It's good enough what I saw. Tweak it and get it out. Tim Kennedy, great to talk to you. Scars and Stripes available at bookstores everywhere, at Amazon and BarnesandNoble.com. Tim, nice to talk to you again.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.